once you find something that lifts your spirits, brightens your day, something that you really and truly look forward to doing each and every single day, it's kind of like you're really not working, taxing yourself. You're doing something that you really and truly love doing, and you just look forward to doing each and every single day. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication to be conditioned, a lot of sacrifice too. Every year you're trying to outdo the last year or get better from the last year. And that's what I was trying to do every single year, get better from last year. And you really have to put in some work to do that. And you're trying to work harder, diet harder, train harder, sacrifice more if that's possible. Trying to be the best at anything comes from within yourself. It's all about what you're willing to do, how far you're willing to take it, how much work you're willing to put in, how much sacrifice you're willing to endure.
Is there anything you regret from your bodybuilding career?
Nothing at all. This is what I enjoy doing, so this is what I'm going to do, and whatever the outcome may be, that's what the outcome is going to be. Regardless of what happens, I'm always going to enjoy myself and always going to enjoy life as long as I can be alive.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Ronnie Coleman, widely considered to be the greatest bodybuilder of all time. You won the sport's most prestigious competition, Mr Olympia, a record 8 times, and claimed your first 2 titles while still serving as a full-time police officer. At your peak, you had a 58-inch chest and 24-inch arms and cut down to a staggering 0.33% body fat percentage for competition, while still weighing up to 300 pounds. You consumed up to 5,500 calories per day to achieve yearly gains of 10 pounds of pure muscle. Unfortunately, your intense training regime has had a significant impact on your body, leading to a total of 13 surgeries with 14 screws, 2 steel rods, and 2 cages now in your neck and back. Despite the major operations, you continue lifting weights to this day. You were recently featured in the Netflix documentary Ronnie Coleman, The King, and your book, Yeah Buddy, chronicles your many struggles and successes in the sport of bodybuilding. Ronnie, welcome to London Real.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, great to have you here. It was great watching the movie, and I really appreciate you putting yourself out there and showing us all the behind the scenes about you. There was one moment in there where I think you're talking to one of the other fellow Mr. Olympia competitors on stage, and one of them says, "Why do you do this, Ronnie?" And you say, "'Cause I love it. I love bodybuilding." And the competitor, I think he said, "You know what? I'm here for the trophies. I'm here for the money. I'm here for the girls." But it looked like he never thought whether he really loved it. But that seems to be you. And I was wondering if you could tell me, why did you always love bodybuilding? What was it about it? And where'd that passion come from?
Well, I started when I was 12, and it always gave me a real relaxed feeling, real comfortable feeling, a real enjoyment, kind of like brighten my day just about every single day. And once you find something that lifts your spirits, brightens your day, something that you really and truly look forward to doing each and every single day, it's kind of like you're really not working, taxing yourself. You're doing something that you really and truly love doing, and you just look forward to doing it each and every single day, just because of the feeling that you get from doing it.
There's that old phrase that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same way I felt when I kind of like worked for the police department too.
Right. You love serving people and you love
Mm-hmm.
working out and lifting weights. Those were the two things. That was enough for you, right?
That was plenty for me.
And if you look at the guys that you usually shared the stage with on a Mr. Olympia competition, I mean, how many of those guys actually loved what they did? I mean, could you count them on one hand? Was it 2 or 3 guys, do you think, that really loved it the way you did?
I mean, I think you got to have some kind of love for it in order to do what it kind of does to you. It's not that easy. It's not a lot of fun if you don't enjoy doing it. So I think you got to enjoy it in order to be able to just to do it, because it's like I say, it's a lot of hard work, to put it mildly.
I'm curious, when I watch that documentary, I look at you back in the day in these competitions, and then I look at, competitors today who are on Instagram, and, they're posting pictures every day. They've got brand deals they can do. They got this whole other business over here. Whereas back in your day, especially for Mr. Olympia, you would work 365 days a year on the diet, on the training, on the sleep, and then cut weight, all for that one moment on stage where you would get, the crowd, the judges, a picture, maybe some video, and that was it. I mean, everything was on the line. In some ways, did that separate out the real competitors, or how does that make it different back then as opposed to today?
It's a different era. We always talk about that when we're doing this bodybuilding thing. You got to look at the era that Arnold was in. You got to look at the era that Lee Haney was in. You got to look at the era that when it first started out. Every era is different. You got to look at the era that I was in. Everybody was doing different things. So you got to work with what you have to work with. And that's what we basically did. We're just glad to be in there, working out, having fun, enjoying ourselves, and doing what we had to do to get ready for a show or whatever we was doing. So it was all about what was going on at the time, basically, what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so you just kind of have to deal with those times. These days, you have all the other distractions and social media. Back then, I guess you didn't have that. What was it like when it all came down to that one day, every year for that Mr. Olympia? I mean, what's it like when your whole year revolves around that one day? Do you remember those times? Was it stressful? Was it exciting? Do you think back and can you remember what that was like?
Oh, I can remember like it was yesterday. It wasn't stressful. It was more exciting than anything because you get, like you said, you spend the whole year getting ready for that one day, and so when that day finally arrives, you're the most excited person up there, most excited person that's competing in the show because, like I said, you spend so much time getting ready for it. But for me, I always had so much fun doing it. I enjoyed it. I was never even nervous in anything that I can recall, because I was always looking forward to that day. That day could never get here soon enough because I knew how much fun I was going to have because I had prepared myself. Like you said, the whole year you had prepared yourself. You worked real hard. You've done everything you possibly can do. You haven't left any stones unturned. And so you just can't wait for that day to get here. And once it finally arrives, it's the day that you worked for your entire year. So it's a very exciting day.
And what's the most important part of that day? Is it when the fans cheer? Is it standing next to your competitors? Is it getting the trophy? Like what's the most important part of that day for you?
The most important part of the day is actually getting to compete because, like I said, you've worked so hard. you prepared endlessly, you know, from doing all the stuff you have to do, because there's so much you have to do, you know, from getting your routine together, from working out each and every single day, 7 days a week. You know, it's a 24-hour, 24-hour, 7 days a week job. Everything you do is it revolves around getting ready for the show. You know, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. So everything, you know, revolves around that. So that's why you so excited, you know, when that day finally arrived, because, you know, you spent so much time just getting ready for it.
And when you're competing, are you looking at the other guys? Are you looking at the reaction of the crowd? Do you know you're going to win anyways? Like, what's that like?
Well, for me, I don't really look at the other. I'm focused on what I got to do. You know, I'm thinking in my head, you know, like, you know, when you're standing there, you know, you gotta stay tight. You gotta, you know, be ready at all times. So you're just focused on whatever it is you're doing. And once they call you out, you know, you got to focus on, you know, hitting your poses right, turning the right way. It's just so much that you got to do that you're not really paying any attention to anybody but yourself, basically.
Right, and you've cut weight, you're low body fat, the lights are on you, you're tensing your muscles. I mean, I've heard the whole experience is mentally and emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, very, very mentally and emotionally exhausting. You got to be focused on everything that you're doing. You know, every single just minute you're just about up there on that stage.
Now, I heard some rumor, and tell me if this is true, Ronnie, that you never used to look at yourself in the mirror before competition, or would never take pictures of yourself. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. I had somebody do that for me. I always had a nutritionist, you know, they came and, you know, made sure everything was together, everything was ready for me to step on stage. So I really didn't have to do all that myself.
But but you know, even you have to admit, Ronnie, that makes you unique, because most bodybuilders, when they're pumping iron, they're checking themselves in the mirror. They're checking to see the work they've done. But you're not doing that because you have a different philosophy about this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I've already, you know, paid somebody to do that for me. So I'm just like, okay, I trust this guy. If I did, you know, I wouldn't be working with him. So I trust his word. And I know he's all for me, and he's not going to mislead me in any way. So I'm ready to go.
So it's not an ego thing. You're not like, look how beautiful Ronnie is. For you, this is this is a mental challenge, and you're testing yourself, exactly. And that's what this is about.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. You know,
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, am I ready to win another show?
All right, so it's a mental battle you play with yourself for 365 days, and if you've won that battle every hour of every day, you walk into that show knowing you're going to win.
Exactly. Whether you're going to win or not.
Wow, that does make you unique, right? Because most guys on the stage had been looking at themselves, maybe had different philosophies of the way they approach their bodybuilding.
Yeah, you got to have the right attitude, you know, and you got to be confident, or else you're not going to do too good in this sport.
Okay. So, you know, I've been doing the show for about 9 years. 7 years ago, I had Dorian Yates on the show, and he hadn't really ever done a show before. These shows were still new at the time. For people that don't know, 6-time Mr. Olympia from 92 to 97. And he came on the show and really surprised people that he was more than this hunk of muscle, that he had all these other ideas and thoughts. And I think as we talk today, people are going to realize that about you. I mean, you know, you got your degree in accounting, highly skilled, a great cop. You know, you were actually really good at everything you ever did, Ronnie.
I put 100% in everything I've ever did.
And that's fascinating. And I want to talk about that, you know, but, you know, Dorian always talked about, you know, a lot of the milestones he had as a bodybuilder. And I really liked getting to know Dorian. But one thing is, 4 or 5 years ago, I went down to Spain and I trained with Dorian. And I did leg day with Dorian Yates, okay? Now, look, he's taking some guys that go on stage and taking them on leg day and they're throwing up in the parking lot, you know, up in Birmingham. There's footage of that, right? And so he put me and my 80 kilograms through a leg day. And I've lifted weights before, but he said, Brian, I'm going to take you to a breaking point and I'm going to ask you to do a rep. And he said, it's going to be like I got a little gun to your baby boy's head. And if you don't finish this rep, I'm going to pull the trigger. He said, that's the intensity I need from you. And I had just had a son. And I was like, Dorian, you know I got a baby boy. He said, yeah, I know that. That's why I told you that. And he put me through this leg press. I'm telling you, Ronnie, I had never been to that pain cave before. And he got 3 or 4 reps out of me after I thought I was done.
Yeah.
And he said, and I got done with that, and the blood was coming back to my head. And he said, that's what it takes, Brian. But he said, it's that every single day. And most guys aren't willing to go to that pain level every single day. And that's what it takes to be a competitor. What do you make of that story?
That's exactly the way it is.
Okay.
That's exactly the way I couldn't have put it better myself.
And so that's the difference between the guys that win on the stage and the guys that don't. It's whether you've gone to that intensity every day. Well, let's be honest, when no one's watching, right? You have to do that to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's going to come a day when everybody's watching. So you gotta prepare yourself like everybody's watching you.
Now,
if you want to, take it to the next level, and be a world champion.
Now, Ronnie, you were always known for your work ethic. Everybody says in the gym, you go harder and stronger than everybody else. Where does that come from? Everyone, I'm sure you've been asked, is there some darkness in you? Do you have a dark side? Are you trying to channel those demons? But I don't know if that's true with you. Where does it come from?
No, it's not true with me. It's just a desire to be the very best that I can. And like I was saying, that just about everything I do, I'm like that with just about everything I've ever done. I just put every ounce of hard work and dedication into everything that I try to achieve. And I feel like if you're not doing it to be the best at it, you're pretty much just wasting your time. So I've always, worked extremely hard on everything and fully dedicated myself to every task that I've ever taken upon myself to do.
Is that something that came from your parents or your grandparents? Was that kind of something in your family as far as that work ethic?
No, that's something that I was born with.
So just genetic.
Yeah, that's just the gene side in me.
But one thing about you, Ronnie, it seems, is you're not competing against someone else. You're competing with yourself.
Exactly. That's what I tell everybody. I'm always asked that question. Do you look at your competition? What do you think about the competition? What do you think about so and so? And did you think about him when you was getting ready for the show? Well, I'm like, no, not really, because I was too focused on myself, trying to get myself together. Because I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I can do, and I can always control what I can do. I can never control what somebody else is doing. So I've always focused on myself. I always challenge myself, to be the best that I possibly can be.
It's quite a mentality, Ronnie, but it's kind of old school mentality. I don't want to sound like an old man, but I see a lot of kids these days that seem to always want to blame someone else for their lack of success.
Exactly.
Do you see some of that? Do you think they need to get back to basics?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it goes along with the era that they're in, though. That's just the way they are. So back in my day, everything was totally different than the way it is now. And
right.
you got all this, all this social media stuff and all this new stuff, new technology to go along with everything too.
Do you think that technology makes it worse, that mindset?
I don't think technology has anything to do with somebody trying to, be the best that they can. I think that's just an excuse, basically.
Okay.
Because trying to be the best at anything comes from within yourself. It's all about, what you're willing to do, how far you're willing to take it, how much work you're willing to put in, how much sacrifice you're willing to, how much sacrifice you're willing to endure. Because, there was a lot of things that I wanted to do when I was getting ready for shows that I couldn't do, but I had to make those sacrifices in order to be the best at whatever I wanted to do. And I don't think people have that same mentality today as I did back in my day.
What kind of thing?
Different era.
Yeah. What kind of things did you have to sacrifice?
Oh, there's a lot of things I had to sacrifice. Being with my family, going out to nightclubs, not eating what I wanted to eat, not being able to go certain places, like if I had to go to a wedding or to a party or to any kind of social event, I had to cut everything out, and just focus on what I was doing. It's almost like you in some kind of prison where, there are certain things you can and can't do. And that's where you got to treat it for the most part. But you got to enjoy it too, You got to enjoy yourself, and otherwise you won't be able to do it. So I was able to enjoy what I was doing. I was able to do what I was doing because I knew what the outcome was going to be basically from me making these sacrifices.
Was it always worth it once you got that medal?
Every single time.
Right. That's
never not worth it.
That's the funny thing, when you do sacrifice those things that seem important, like I want to go to the club, I want that pizza. When you actually get what you were working for, it's 1,000 times better than those little play. Right?
Never any regrets on that. Never.
I mean, Ronnie, if you had some advice to kids these days about, how they should think about their priorities, what would you tell them? Because it seems to me that everyone's kind of looking for a reason why they're not successful. They're like, oh, I'm not successful because of this happened, or this guy's not doing this, or I didn't get this from this person. What should they be focusing on if they want to go achieve greatness like you have?
It's all about, I think anybody that's got anything has had to work extremely hard for it, because anything that's given to you, it is not really worth it. Because if it was given to you, then it's probably just being given just about everybody. But if you work hard and you make the sacrifices that you make, it makes enjoying your success that much more better, for the most part.
Yeah, and that
you're gonna have to work extremely hard, to accomplish anything that's worth having or worth going after. You're gonna have to. Ain't no other way around it. You're gonna make those sacrifices. You're gonna have to work hard. You're gonna have to be dedicated, and you're gonna have to be focused on the task of whatever it is you're trying to achieve.
Is there anything you regret from your bodybuilding career? Do you ever think, man, I wish I would have got the 9th, or I wish I started earlier? Or is there anything when you look back at that body of work that you think about these days?
Nothing at all, because I used to tell people, I never in a million years would have thought I won 1 Olympia, let alone 8. Even when I was up there standing on stage, waiting for my name to be called first, I didn't even think I was going to win, because I had gotten 9th before that, the year before that, and the year before that, I didn't do too much better. I only really got into the sport of bodybuilding because the guy told me to give me a free membership to a gym. otherwise I would have never got into the sport. It just was it never was a lifelong dream of mine to be a bodybuilder. Of course, I've always worked out. I was on the powerlifting team in high school, and I worked out each and every single day, just about my whole entire life, because that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I enjoyed doing. But when it came to being a bodybuilder, I never wanted to be one, because I didn't think I was cut out to be one in the first place. But when the guy told me to give me a free membership, then things change when people give you stuff for free that you normally have to pay for.
And like you said, you didn't place very good in the early years. I mean, at one point...
No, not at all.
And you wanted to quit in those early years? Were you thinking, man, I'm never going to get this?
No. You got to remember, I worked out for the free membership.
Right.
Not to place good, That was just, just icing on the cake. If I placed good in the show or something. But of course, I was always trying to be the best that I could be. But I never thought it would amount to nothing, because, like I said, I never, wanted to be a bodybuilder ever, my whole life, until he told me, give me a free membership to the gym. Oh yeah, I can be a bodybuilder for that. But otherwise, I never would have done it on my own. What I'm trying to say.
Okay. Why did it take so many years to finally place first? I mean, what is it important to understand about what it takes to create a Mr. Olympia?
It's a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, for me, a lot of muscle maturity. My muscles had to, because I never bodybuilt before. I was always doing powerlifting. So your body has to be used to being a bodybuilder, and building up to that. 'Cause I never just was trying to build muscle. For the most part, I'm just in there just, having fun and enjoying myself, and trying to be strong as possible, trying to be as strong as I possibly could, because I was always competing in, like powerlifting shows here and there. So when I got into bodybuilding, I had to make a completely different change to the way I worked out. I had to completely change it. I went from doing, like 3-4 sets, maybe 2 or 3 reps, to doing like 3, 4, 5, 6 sets, to maybe like 20 to 30 reps, 15 reps, something like that. So it was just a completely different way of training. So my body had to catch up to being a bodybuilder, because it was always you just used to being a powerlifter and just doing things in a power way, and not building it up like have to do to get on stage and compete against other guys. Yeah, I never tried to just build my body up to be on the stage competing against other guys like in that way. So it took a long time for me to get to that point, to where I was real good at it. But once I got there, of course, I was pretty good at it.
Yeah, because it takes years to build that muscle mass up. It's like 10 pounds a year, and it just takes many, many, many years to get the mass.
Even 5 pounds a year is good.
It's a lot, right?
A lot of people don't understand that, yeah. The 5 pounds of muscle a year is good too. And that's what I was mostly actually doing, The most I put on a year is probably like maybe 5, 6 pounds. But after a while, it catches up. It's a level of consistency of doing it. That's how you pack it on. You don't just go in and just lift all these weights and put on all these pounds of muscle in like a year or two. It takes years, many years, and you have to be patient. And a lot of people are not real patient when it comes to packing on the pounds. A lot of people.
Well, a lot of people aren't
They do
patient.
not understand it.
Yeah. How long did it take you from when you first started bodybuilding to win your first Mr. Olympia? How many years was it?
See, I started in 90 and won in 98. So I'm going to say about 8 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. 90 was my first bodybuilding contest. It was, I can tell you the date, April 7th, 1990, my first bodybuilding contest. You remember.
And so it took that many years for you to put the muscle on, probably
Yeah.
learn the discipline, learn the
Yeah.
poses, learn the competition, because that's a whole new thing to learn, right?
Yeah. Learn the sport and learn how to be a bodybuilder, learn how to diet, learn how to train as a bodybuilder. I'm doing all these things, over all these years. And, I'm making a lot of mistakes. So it's through trial and error that I got to where I was.
Because there really wasn't much on the internet back then. People forget.
There
So,
was no internet back then.
and just a few books lying around and some magazines, and who knows if that was accurate.
That was it. That was all you had. Books, magazines, and hopefully you were running into somebody that knew exactly what they were doing.
Okay. But most of it you had to figure out you're on your own.
Most of it I figured out on my own through trial and error. Yeah, through a lot of trial, a lot of error.
Yeah.
A lot of error.
What were some of the big errors?
Oh, just learning how to, carb deplete, carb up, learning how to, manipulate water, restriction, water intake, water outtake, all that kind of stuff. I mean, those are some of the hardest things in the world to learn. At least it was for me.
Yeah, just that information or lack of is pretty incredible. I mean,
Exactly.
You were there.
A lot of times there wasn't a lot of books out there on that kind of stuff. You just have to kind of like depend on people that's been there and done it for the most part. And everybody's body is different, so everybody's gonna respond differently to different things. So that's what I mean by the error part coming in. What worked for somebody else ain't gonna work for me because my body is totally different. Everybody's body is totally different from everybody else's. So you have to find your own formula in a way, and that's what I mean by the trial and error. You try all these different ways of other people telling you how to do it, and you find out, oh, well, that sounds good and all, but it ain't working for me. So you have to come up with your own, method of doing things, your own way of doing things, your own formulation of doing things. And that's what I mean most about the trial and error.
Yeah, I talked at length with Dorian Yates about doing that because, he was in Birmingham, England, literally thousands and thousands of miles away from Muscle Beach, where everything was kind of happening at Gold's. So he didn't have any options. He had to kind of go do it himself and figure it out himself. And I think by doing that, Ronnie, he managed to create something brand new, kind of like you did. Because he wasn't surrounded. I mean, imagine if Dorian had been at Gold's Gym. He wouldn't have been the Dorian Yates we know, probably, right?
Nope. Reason why I never went to Gold's Gym. I remember being at Lee Haney's last Mr. Olympia. And he said, man, after all this time, I'm just now learning how to carb deplete. And that was his last Olympia that he won.
Wow.
So that goes to show you how difficult the sport is.
And when you think of
8 Olympias too.
Yeah, he did 8 as well. Yeah. When you think about Dorian Yates, what did he contribute to Mr. Olympia, to the era? And when you think about him as a bodybuilder, what's the first thing you think about, and what did he contribute to the sport?
Well, Dorian was one of the first guys to step on stage, as like a mass monster type guy with a lot of big muscles, a lot of good separation, conditioning. All he had the big muscles and the conditioning that nobody had ever brought to the stage before. He was the first guy to ever do that.
Yeah, and you think he did that probably because he was on his own with no people surrounding him, and in his mind, that was the way he decided to attack that puzzle. He said, I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah. He figured it out for himself, basically.
And I think the conditioning he brought, meant that everybody else on stage was like, man, if Dorian's going to come that conditioned, that means I got to work my butt off next year a lot more than I would have normally done. I mean, you see Dorian in like 92, man. I mean, he looks like a skeleton in his face. I mean, he's so conditioned, but it meant to everybody else on the stage, you better step your game up if you want to play.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. and that's basically the guy who sets the trend, on the sport. It's always Mr. Olympia, the winner for that year or whatever. And if you are fortunate enough to win, 3, 4, 5, that's when you control an era, and then you establish an era also by doing that.
And then you establish the standards, and then you can kind of own those standards if you deliver every year, right? And then the judges start to think of you as the standard, right? And as long as you can maintain it, you can hold your era, but there'll always be some breaking point, right?
Yeah. You're going to always, get to a point where you can't continue to do it, It's only so long that you can hold that, type of conditioning. So only so many years or whatever I'm trying to say. You're going to always get caught up with Father Times. Always.
Yeah. Always, yeah. Well, Dorian had his tricep torn. I mean, he competed that last Olympia with it was almost torn. I mean, he said he was worrying about it tearing when he was posing.
Yeah.
And that,
exactly. I remember.
You remember, yeah. And that really ended his career. You were there, yeah? Oh, wow. And so if Dorian brought that to the table, what was your era about? What will people look back and say, the Ronnie Coleman era was all about this? What did you bring?
Well, I was trying to do the same thing Dorian was doing, but just on a high weight scale, I got all the way up to like 295, on stage with the conditioning and stuff. And, I don't know how Dorian went, but I think mine was just a little bit higher than his. Just a little bit, not too much more, but a little bit higher. And, with a longer range too. The longer you're up there, the harder you got to work for the most part. That's the way it was for me. That's the way I looked at it, because every year you're trying to outdo the last year or get better from the last year. And that's what I was trying to do every single year, get better from last year. And you really have to put in some work to do that because you know how hard you had to work the year before. And you trying to work harder, diet harder, train harder, sacrifice more if that's possible. So you're always trying to outdo the year before. And, 8 years is a long time to do that.
Were you mentally exhausted by that 8th year?
No. I was nowhere close to being mentally exhausted. My body probably was, but not me. Not in my mind, no, not even close.
Was that what the ninth? That ninth, what could have been your ninth? Did you think you won that competition, or was that fair to pass the torch that year?
Of course, I'm always thinking I won because that's the mindset that I had going into every show. And but like I said, the torch got to be passed sooner or later, it's gonna catch up with you. But you never want to pass it, that's for sure. And you always, as long as you are able to make it to the stage, you're always trying to win.
Did you ever think you'd come back and get it again?
Of course, I tried to, but it wasn't meant to be.
Right. That's hard to do in bodybuilding, to come back.
Yeah, it's very hard to do, in bodybuilding. Very hard.
Let me ask you just about a couple other of the big bodybuilders in the sport. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when you hear that name, especially in association with bodybuilding, what do you think about? Because he obviously was doing this back in the 70s. And also, how would Dorian do if he was, in his prime today with all the information and the nutrition and the science? Would it have been a different ball game for him?
Oh, it'd been totally different. Because, every year, I think the technology gets better. There's always some new stuff out there that the guys are doing and they're finding out, So Arnold, with what he had, couldn't compete with Dorian, what he had, of course. And you could say that about every era, just about, though.
But with Arnold, you saw the genetics that he had that he could have been a different bodybuilder with different training, diet, all that stuff. He could have competed with you. Could he have competed with you?
He could have competed with just about anybody if he'd had, the technology that we had. Anybody, any era, Because like I said, every era was different, They got stuff now that, I didn't have back when I was competing.
And what about Arnold, his legacy? When you think about him and what he brought to the sport, what comes to your mind? How would you explain that to your grandkids?
Well, he was the first guy to, win that many in a row and, hold the title for such long. So that just add to, his level of greatness, and that just tells you right there that he was one of the greatest to ever do it. The longer you are able to maintain a high level of competition and compete on the high level for a long time, that just establish you as one of the greatest. And that, that's pretty much where I see it, him as being one of the greatest bodybuilders to ever step on the stage.
And what about Lee Haney? Lee Haney had, again, a tied record with 8 titles, right?
Yeah, same with him, yeah.
And what did Lee bring to the sport? Did Lee, he was a different type, right? Was he ever going to be, as big as the guys in your era, or was it going to just be a different game with Lee and his body?
Yeah, it was going to be just a different game. Everybody, like you said, everybody's not going to be able to put on that muscle like that, no matter what kind of technology you have. If you don't have the genetics for it, then it's not going to happen. So, technology plays a role, but also genetics plays a major, major role, They got, those 3 body types, endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph, And if you don't have the right body type, to be able to put on that muscle mass, it's just never going to happen.
Okay.
Never going to happen.
Well, let's talk about that in genetics, because you talk about technology, and a lot of people are thinking, well, what technology is he talking about? To the untrained athlete, to someone who's never actually tried to put on muscle, a lot of people think all you got to do is get the right steroids and you're Mr. Olympia. So can you explain that? Is that thinking correct? Is it incorrect? And how do the enhancements work, the supplements work when it comes to steroids?
The enhancements are only going to work as good as, your genetics are. You look at some of them baseball players and some of the guys that play football or whatever and hockey and anybody else that, tried using steroids, and they're not, like bodybuilders. They're not step on the stage type guys, but because they don't have the right genetics. You got to have the right genetics to be able to compete in this sport too. It's not all about steroids. You got to be able to, your body got to be able to take in a certain amount of calories and all that kind of stuff. You got to have the right training techniques.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.